Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm setting it up in the upstairs because our friends from Chicago they don't have a computer at home. So I told them I'd set it up on the TV, but they're not here yet. So I'm going to mute and turn off my video, and then it'll just be set up whenever they get here. Okay? I don't know where Rabbi Jacobowitz is.
Yeah, I assume he comes on from home, well, from his apartment.
Yeah, I know, but I thought he'd be on already. No, that's Rabbi Kranzler. All right, I'm muting and I'm stopping my video, but we're here.
Rabbi Kranzler, are you on? I saw your signal come up. If you can hear me, Rabbi Kranzler, at least give me some sort of a signal. Rabbi Kranzler, just a quick message. If you can hear me, we did not have heat upstairs. So it's just a warning for tomorrow. Okay.
Hello,
David,
good morning.
good morning.
Do we have this set up upstairs for the few people who wanted
Yes,
to?
yes. Andrea set it up for them, so they will be able to participate
Terrific.
as well. Okay. That's good. I got a couple more minutes, David, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
I got Harold Road to continue as of next Monday.
Yes.
So we'll give a few additional
Great.
talks, and that will carry us through to the end of pretty much the end of the planned season. Let's see if there's. Okay. Looks like Rabbi Kranzler is having his breakfast with us.
Mhm.
He's chuckling there. You're muted, Moshe.
You're muted, Rabbi.
Yeah.
You're still muted.
Okay. Right. Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to have Rabbi David Jacobowitz continue with his series as he shares with us what we might call the pros and cons of Zionism, and continues today to give us some more insight into that important the aspects of why there are strongly held views on, so to speak, both sides of the Zionist issue. David, b'vakasha.
Thank you, Rabbi Green. My pleasure. Can you all hear me? Hopefully so. The discussion today will be, I think, a little bit more interactive, because what I would like to do with you is to zoom in a bit more on the opposition. You know, our experience when we go to different rallies for Israel is that we'll see people who disturb us. They seem like a very radical fringe. We've talked about them. We've talked about their philosophy, where they've come from. We've discussed that it's based on a string of Gedolei Hador, starting with the Munkacher, going through to the Satmar Rav, and that the entire Neturei Karta philosophy is in fact based on the theology that was laid down by the Munkacher and the Satmar Rav. And you may recall that the major aspects of their philosophy include that Bnei Israel, since the time of the Churban, are not supposed to be anything but passive with regard to political activity, with regard to any sort of independence, any sort of state building, that doing anything other than that is considered pushing the end capital E. And that's all supposed to come about miraculously through a Kadosh Baruch Hu by sending Mashiach. And they're so convinced of the rectitude of this position that not only do they adopt it as their theology and their hanhaga and how they lead their lives, but they feel that they need to be very demonstrative about it and and point it out. Excuse me 1 second. And bring it out in public in ways that maybe many of us find very difficult. So I wanted to zoom in a little bit more and flesh out more about Neturei Karta. First, I wanted to introduce you to something that occurred to me about a year ago. We were in Israel last June, July. Hopefully, all of us will be able to go again soon without fear. We were in a community called Givat Zev, and we went to shul. And in the shul, there were a number of what they call Gilionot, papers about the Parsha that share all sorts of divrei Torah. So I picked one up, and it was a Gilion that was written by Rav Moshe Sternbuch, who is an illustrious gadol in Israel. He's described in this newsletter, let's say, as the posek of the generation, the Gaon Rabbi Moshe Sternbuch. Now, what I'd like to do is, just 1 moment, I want to share the screen. Okay, so this is, can you all see the screen, folks? Right, so this is the Gilyon, Mamar Shavu'i B'darkei Avodat Hashem B'inyanei Hazman. So it's a weekly vort on how to worship Hashem and on the important events of the time from the great posek of our generation, Hagon Rebbe Moshe Sternbuch Shlita. Now, let me just move to the second. Just give me a moment. I need to get the other side. Okay, coming up. Okay, so I just wanted to show you one section of it. Most of it is Divrei Torah about Parshat Balak. And then there's a column that I found amazing. I'm just scrolling through it here. And what I'd like to do is to read to you the translation of this column. In short, so Ramosha Sternbuch is a Haredi rabbi who's the vice president of the rabbinical court and the chief of the Eda Haredit in Yerushalayim. You remember that the Eda Haredit is the central rabbinic body of the Haredi community, and it is heavily oriented towards the philosophy of the Satmarav and of Neturei Karta. He lives in Har Nof, and he's the rabbi of the local Gra synagogue. And what you're looking at translates in short as follows. Currently, in the wake of the changes in the government of the heretics of the Holy Land. So remember, last summer, there was all the Sturm and Drang about the Netanyahu, about the election in Israel and the repeated tries at electing a prime minister. He's speaking here of that period. So in the wake of the changes in the government of the heretics in the Holy Land and the change in leadership, there are some who wish to participate in the pain of the previous prime minister, he's speaking of Netanyahu, as if it is a personal pain. So he's saying, some of you, are so upset that there is this crazy thing going on, and it's so hard for the prime minister who's been a prime minister for so long. I feel so bad for him. He goes on to say, it's important to point out that one should feel no connection with this Rasha who repudiates the Torah and the coming of Mashiach, and who eats treif and desecrates the Shabbat, etc. And one should not feel that this Rasha is one of us, and one should not commiserate with his defeat. He goes on, the entire purpose of establishing Medina Yisrael was to render us like all of the other nations. May Hashem spare us. And all the laws of the Medina are Gentile laws. And from the outset, they caused tens of thousands of Jewish children to veer away from the Torah in favor of an education of apostasy. Therefore, how can we identify with their joy or sorrow as if we have any connection with them? They are literally uprooters of Torah. And he ends by saying the government must recognize that all of their efforts to destroy Shabbat, holiness, and the holy yeshivot in the Holy Land will come to nothing, because we will stand as a strong wall protecting the Torah. And all of those who believe that these evildoers will provide salvation will see that this is a vain dream. You see why I got my attention? I'm in shul, wanting to listen to the tefillah and the parsha, and I read such a strong statement. What are some of your reactions to this? I'm very eager to hear. Anybody? Rabbi Kranzler. Okay. That's fine. But it's very striking that this kind of strong, strong oppositional language is there in a shul. And it sort of said to me that people are kind of used to it. I didn't see anybody else getting very upset. The people who were in the shul were a mixed group of people. And it seems as if the strong opposition is almost like a maaseh b'chol yom. It's something that people have just adjusted themselves to and kind of are saying, I go my way, you go your way. As long as we don't interfere with each other, I'll live my way and you'll live your way. And in a way, that's maybe a sign of great health. Instead of people getting very, very worked up and screaming at each other, it's perhaps an indication that the society, the religious society in Israel in particular, is somewhat tribal, and that people have coalesced around a particular belief system, and let others live any way that they want to live. We're tolerant of each other, so long as we don't get in each other's face.
Curious, that shul that you went to, where this was distributed, did they say the Tfilah Shahavadina there?
Yes, they did.
So it was not Haredi shul.
It was a mixed bag shul, lots of different kinds of people, right? And this was not the only newsletter that was lying around. There was a Dati Leumi newsletter from Mizrahi. There were many of them. So that's what was really striking. But it just took me aback when I read this strong language. Okay. What I would like to do now, if you give me a moment, let me stop this share. Is to share with you a clip of a film, about a 20-minute clip. It's called Rebel Rabbis, the ultra-Orthodox Jews who want to see Israel dismantled. And it's described as follows. Focusing on the London branch of the Neturei Karta, a group of controversial ultra-Orthodox Jews who campaign against Zionism and for the immediate dismantling of the state of Israel. Because of their views and support of people like ex-Iranian President Ahmadinejad, something like that, and groups like the Hungarian far-right Jobbik Party, other Jewish people often label them as extremists. Reporter Milane Larson goes behind the closed doors of this secretive community to understand why this Jewish group's anti-Israel sentiment has led them to join Palestinians protesting Israeli occupation and burning Israeli flags. If you give me one moment, I will share the screen.
Rabbi Jacobowitz, I'm more disturbed when I see a picture of Arafat being kissed by the head of the Neturei Karta in Monsey, Rabbi Blau. So to me, that to me is much more upsetting than seeing what they're writing.
I understand that feeling, but you know what? Arafat's not alive, so who knows what he was able to do there.
The fight is not with guns. Our fight is to wake up people and to make them think. Believe strongly that the state of Israel will come to an end. We have God on our side.
We're in Stamford Hill, a Jewish neighbourhood in North London. We're here to meet the UK branch of the controversial ultra-Orthodox Jews of the Neturei Karta. These guys campaign against Zionism and for the immediate dismantling of the state of Israel. Many find their stance mind-boggling, and they're pretty unpopular, especially among other Jewish people. They're often labeled as extremists for hanging out with Iran's former president Ahmadinejad and far-right nationalists from Hungary's Jobbik Party. I want to find out why the Neturei Karta are so driven by their convictions that they're ready to be alienated by their own people. So when one of their leaders in London invited me into the secretive community. I jumped at the chance. I think that's him. Hi,
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm Milan.
Yes, my name is Rabbi Beck.
How big is the Neturei Karta here in Stamford Hill?
The fighters against Zionism here in Stanford Hill is several hundred. But people what are anti-Zionist, there are thousands here in Stanford Hill.
Zionism is the belief that Jewish people should have their own nation. The movement gathered support through the early 20th century, and the State of Israel was established in 1948 in Palestine. Right from the start, Haredi Jews, known as ultra-Orthodox, voiced their opposition. Not only did they fear the rise of secularism, they also believed Jewish people shouldn't have their own state before the coming of the Messiah. Over time, some ultra-Orthodox groups softened their attitudes, and they began to enjoy the benefits of Israel. Others have maintained their opposition. And on the most radical end of the anti-Zionist spectrum is the Neturei Karta.
I will put in paper in the machine. I don't know how to print out.
Rabbi Beck is keen to get his message out, so he's invited me to tag along on a flyering mission around Stamford Hill. So is this your friend who's arriving?
Yes.
His protege, Rabbi Blyer, was coming along too. You have a very nice motorbike.
Oh, thank you. This is one flyer. This is mostly explained why we are against the state of Israel.
Do you find it important to go around and distribute this?
Israeli propaganda is so strong. So obviously we feel obliged to do the opposite.
Sorry if you can see it inside. He will see it here.
So I go at the very back?
Yes, I'm very sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So how do you two know each other?
He was a teacher in school. I was a child in the same school. So I know that as a kid. Very famous as a child.
Do you deliver flyers like this to make more and more people aware of your existence?
Not of my existence, of the existence of the Torah. We are the Neturei Karta, the guardians of the city. We try to guide people what is the right way in Judaism. Like if a woman going dressed not so modest, or there's some shops where there's some things not in the Jewish style, we call them, look, please stop it. You're not allowed here in our neighborhood. Of course, sometimes they get angry, but they understand that in the end of the day, we are
Okay. So I'd be curious as to your reactions, please. What did you feel? Did you learn more about them? Did you have a different attitude towards their perspective than you had perhaps before?
Rabbi, I believe I had seen the film previously, but I have a question. Isn't there a concept of Kol Yisrael Arabim Zelazeh? And when Ahmadinejad, for example, talks about destroying Israel, isn't there responsibility to assist your fellow Jews?
Yes, you would think so, right? But did you hear his rationalization? I believe his
Yeah,
rationalization
sure.
was that he doesn't mean it literally. That's how he's come to be able to go to sleep at night peacefully after saying, I agree with his words. Not everyone hears them in that fashion, right?
It doesn't consider you a fellow Jew, unfortunately.
And maybe to them, they think they are because they think that they're showing a way of life that if everybody would embrace, that it would be more lined up with what the Torah wants. I believe that's probably
Do they recognize non-observant Jews as Jews?
the implication of the film
Hardly.
was no. The implication was no.
Although I believe normative Judaism says that even if you're non-observant, you're still a Jew.
Correct. That the halacha is fairly clear on that. The halacha is fairly clear on that. However, they are adopting a much more extreme approach. What's somewhat painful for me is to see the children being involved, the children being brought up with all of this, because most of them will absorb it in an maybe unthinking way and will continue that way. But realistically, are they a threat to Jewish survival?
No.
Right? We'd be hard pressed to say
No.
that they're.
Do we know the numbers?
Well, so it depends how you count. So if you say that anyone who follows the Satmar Rav is essentially,
I think as far as the children are concerned, I'm sure many grow up and don't necessarily join their philosophy.
yeah, you're probably right. I was just going to say that with regard to Ivan's question, there are around 150, at least 150,000 Satmar Hasidim in the world. So the question is, how many of them are aligned with such an extreme perspective? Probably not all. But you're talking about tens of thousands of people easily.
Can I just point something out?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Gila. Satmar, although Nature Carta, the video you showed makes them seem so entirely exclusive and that they don't accept other Jews, they are amazing at Bikur Cholam, and they visit in the hospital Jews of all stripes. That seems a little inconsistent, but that's what they're known for.
For sure. And I don't even know that the Neturei Karta people wouldn't be involved in that kind of activity. It's when they speak politically, when they speak about the state of Israel, that's when you hear this very harsh language. You're right, the Satmar Bikur Cholam is noted for their involvement. Definitely. Now I have another.
You're breaking up.
Oh, okay. How about now? Any better?
I think it seems better.
Okay. I have another short clip that I wanted to share with you. Just one moment. And this is more focused on a particular family. Okay, one moment, and I will share the screen. Can you all see?
Yep.
Yep. So in this short clip, you're going to hear about Pashkavils. If you're not familiar with that term, it's kind of a strange sounding term. Any of you who have walked in Mea Sharim or other parts of Yerushalayim, you see these large posters that are hanging on the wall. Some of them are notices of funerals, but many of them in the more Haredi areas are the way that news is conveyed. And a lot of them are quite strident and loud about decrying various societal activities that group is against. So this portrays a particular man, Yoel, who is a producer of these Pashka bills.
How are they being identified as Natura Cartonics and not other Hasidim? Rabbi Jacobowitz, how are they identified as Natura Cartonics? Maybe there are other Hasidim. We don't know that. We don't identify them.
When I researched this clip, it was depicting a very extreme right-wing group. It didn't necessarily say they were Nitzuri Karta.
בואו, תכנסו לסוכה. אני עכשיו מפרק, וזה אמור תוך 10 דקות, רבע שעה להיות מפורק, כל הסוכה.
Okay. I felt that this clip is particularly valuable for you to see, for us all to see the personal life, the private life. Were you struck by the poverty? The kind of way that this family is living, crowded with all these kids, and kids look forward to when they grow up, they're going to be sleeping in a shelter underground. But yet they're adamant about their theology. They're adamant. It seems to give them a purpose for living, the theology of being against the Zionim. Any thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah. You know, I was interested that the woman said that she doesn't have the identity card. When their parents or grandparents lived in Hungary or wherever, there was a government, and did they defy government rules there too?
Good question. Good question. Perhaps there were more stringent issues if they behaved that way in Hungary. Many of them really look at the Israeli government as completely illegitimate, so that the halachic view of the law of the government is the law, right, which is a time-honored rule, dina de malchuta dina. Many of them would say, there is no dina de malchuta here. I don't recognize this government. It doesn't have any power over us. It has no authority. That's part of the extreme perspective. But you see how it's propagating. This clip showed how the kids are being brought up this way, smiling as they say they're anti-Zionist. Hopefully this doesn't melt down in some extreme situation. Hopefully the tribes can continue to live side by side. But it creates a lot of animosity, a lot of issues. People are very upset that their kids are going to the army and others are not. We're well aware of these issues. I just figured it would be very worthwhile to get an inside look at how the Neturei Karta see themselves and how they live and how to look inside their heads as to how they see the rest of the world. Any other comments?
What's their view of technology? I see they have printing presses. I don't know if they have computers, but they have loudspeakers.
Yeah, I think technology up to a certain level of technology is well accepted. Many of the people, Haredi community, use cell phones, flip phones. They consider those to be a kosher type of phone. They won't use smartphones. When surveys are done, I saw a survey recently that said, despite all that, 2/3 of Haredim have smartphones. They just don't necessarily publicize that they do. It's too seductive of a technology to be completely pushed away. I think that's the reality. Okay, thank you very much for your interest and participation. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully we've all learned something.
Shkola.
Shikar, thank
Thank
you,
you.
David.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you all for your participation. Next Monday, we go back to Harold Road, who will be speaking on a variety of topics, part of which deals with his experience in Iraq, and part of it, other aspects of his work, understanding the Iranian mentality. Thank you again for participating.
You very well put together.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
You well.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You want to get the cards?